Vin Diesel, incognito, strolling into his own restaurant. Suddenly he stops. The quiet hum of the room is shattered by the sound of a server crying. What he does next is nothing short of incredible. Vin Diesel stepped into his restaurant, Torx. Like any other customer, no fanfare, no entourage, just a man in a hoodie and jeans blending into the Friday night crowd. The place was alive with energy. Servers darted between tables, trays loaded with sizzling steaks and cocktails, while the warm scent of garlic butter and grilled ribeye filled the air. Golden light cast a cozy glow across the dining room, where laughter and conversation flowed easily among couples, friends, and solo diners. To anyone else, everything seemed perfect. But Vin knew better. Numbers and reviews might look great, but the soul of a restaurant lived behind the scenes in the kitchen's heat. The break room sighs and the unspoken looks exchanged between staff. His gaze swept the floor, catching the manager, a tall man in a navy blue dress shirt, standing stiffly at the edge of the dining area. The manager's arms were crossed, eyes darting over every movement like a hawk circling prey. There was something off. This wasn't just someone being attentive, it was controlling. Vin's gut, sharpened by years in the industry, prickled with unease. He turned toward the bar, intending to observe a little longer, when a faint sound stopped him cold. It was soft at first, easy to miss under the clinking glasses and conversations, but as he moved closer to the side hallway near the kitchen, it grew clearer someone was crying. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind of sobs, this was the kind you choke down when you're trying desperately not to break. Vin's footsteps slowed as he neared the break room door, cracked open just enough for him to see inside. A young woman stood hunched over a metal counter, her fingers gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Beside her, a young man in a Torx uniform whispered urgently, his tone low and frantic. Vin didn't know her, but the look on her face a mix of exhaustion, fear, and something deeper hit him like a punch to the gut. Something was very wrong, and Vin wasn't leaving until he figured out what. He forced himself to turn back toward the bar, settling onto a stool. Outwardly calm, he accepted a glass of water from the bartender with a polite nod, but inside his mind raced. Stress he could understand, this wasn't that. This was fear. His first instinct was to walk straight over and ask if she was okay, but right now, he wasn't Vin Diesel, the owner. He was just another customer. So he listened. Fragments of conversation drifted through the hallway. "You can't let him do this," the young man urged. Her voice, barely above a whisper, broke Vin's heart. "What choice do I have?" He said, "If I don't do what he asks, I'm gone." Vin's grip tightened around the glass. His first thought was maybe it was a customer harassing her, but no. The dread in her voice wasn't about a stranger. It was someone inside the restaurant. He glanced back toward the floor. The manager, the man in the navy shirt, was still standing near the hostess, stand arms crossed, eyes scanning like a predator watching prey. Something about him sent every alarm bell ringing in Vin's head. A movement caught his eye. The young man from the break room, the one comforting her, had returned to the floor, jaw clenched, fidgeting as he adjusted the notepad in his apron. Vin saw his chance. He stood, moving casually to the server station near the back. "Hey man," Vin said, voice calm but firm. "Got a pen?" The young man jumped slightly but recovered, pulling one from the counter. "Yeah, sure," he replied. Vin took it but didn't walk away. He glanced at the name tag, James. "Listen," Vin said quietly, "I couldn't help but notice your friend back there. She seems upset." James stiffened, hands tightening around a stack of plates. "She's fine," he said too quickly. Vin tilted his head. "She doesn't look fine." James's gaze flicked toward the manager, then back to the floor. Silence stretched between them before he finally exhaled. "She's not," James admitted, voice barely a whisper. Vin kept his posture relaxed but leaned in just enough. "Is it a customer issue?" James hesitated. That pause told Vin everything. "No," James muttered. "It's not." His eyes shifted again toward the front, where the manager was now speaking, the hostess, his presence radiating that unsettling authority. "It's her personal business," James added quickly. It was a lie. Vin could hear it, but it wasn't meant to mislead. It was fear, plain and simple. Vin had seen this before. Employees stuck in toxic situations, unable to speak up because rent needed paying, bills needed covering, or because the person causing the harm held all the power. "How long has she been working here?" Vin asked, keeping his tone light. "Over a year." James's answer was automatic. Then his expression tightened. "Why?" Vin shrugged. "You're just wondering if she likes it here." James let out a humorless laugh. She doesn't, but she can't afford to leave. And there was the real problem. Not just stress, entrapment. Vin's gut twisted. He opened his mouth to press further when he felt it, the shift in the air. Heavy. Oppressive. He didn't need to turn around to know why. The manager had noticed. Everything okay over here? The voice was smooth, but there was an edge beneath it, a warning wrapped in politeness. James immediately dropped his gaze, busying himself with the plates. Yes, sir. Just helping a customer, he mumbled. Vin turned to face him. Mid-40s, neatly combed hair, sharp features that spoke of someone used to getting his way. The name tag read Matt Callahan. Can I help you with something? Callahan asked, smiling, but his eyes were hard. Vin smiled back, matching politeness with a layer of steel. Just needed a pen. James was kind enough to help me out. Callahan clapped James's shoulder a shade too firmly. Good. Let's stay focused, huh? James nodded quickly, not meeting Vin's eyes. Vin's jaw clenched but kept his face neutral. He knew what this was. A power play, intimidation, subtle but suffocating. He nodded his thanks and stepped away, but felt Callahan's gaze burning into his back with every step. Outside, the cool night air hit him like a wave, helping calm the storm inside. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it but ignored the notification. His thoughts were with the woman in that break room. She wasn't just overwhelmed, she was terrified. Trapped. And Callahan, he was the cage. Vin exhaled slowly. This wasn't just another bad manager. This was predatory, calculated, and it wasn't going to stand. He looked back at the restaurant, lights glowing warmly against the dark sky. Not tonight. He was going to find out exactly what was happening. And if Callahan thought he could hide behind authority, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Vin's posture remained relaxed, but his mind was racing. How long has she been working here? He asked, voice light. James answered automatically, a little over a year, but then he tensed, his knuckles whitening around the plates. Vin shrugged casually, just wondering if she likes it here. James let out a short, humorless chuckle. She doesn't, he muttered, eyes darting toward the front of the restaurant. But she can't afford to leave. And there it was, the truth. She wasn't just overworked, she was trapped. Before Vin could press further, James stiffened. He didn't need to turn around to know why the air shifted, thick with tension. Footsteps approached, slow but deliberate. Everything okay over here? The voice was smooth, but there was steel underneath. James's gaze dropped instantly as he busied himself with the plates. Yes, sir, James replied, his voice quick and practiced. Just helping a customer. Vin finally turned to face the man. Up close, the details sharpened, mid-40s, crisp dress shirt, neatly combed hair, and a jaw set with smug authority. The name tag glinted under the restaurant's soft lighting, Matt Callahan. Can I help you with something? Callahan asked, smile polite but edged. Vin matched the expression with a casual grin. Just getting a pen, he said. James was kind enough to help me out. Callahan didn't break eye contact. Good, he said, clapping James on the shoulder, a gesture too firm, too practiced in dominance. Let's stay focused, huh? James's nod was quick. Yes, sir, he murmured, eyes locked on the plates like they held the answers to an impossible test. Vin clenched his jaw but said nothing. Not yet. He stepped away, feeling Callahan's gaze trailing him, a weight between his shoulder blades. Outside, the cool night air hit Vin like a wave, soothing the heat bubbling beneath his calm exterior. He pulled out his phone, pretending to scroll, but his thoughts swirled. Lily was terrified. James was walking on eggshells, and Callahan, he thrived on control. Vin had met his share of tough bosses, but this was different. This wasn't just demanding standards, this was calculated manipulation. If he wanted answers, he'd need someone who wasn't afraid. And then, as if on cue, Malek the bartender stepped outside, phone in hand, shoulders slumped from a long shift. Vin saw the opening and took it. Long night? He asked, keeping his tone easy. Malek glanced up, startled, then relaxed. Yeah, Fridays are always nuts, he replied with a tired smile. Vin leaned against the wall beside him, casual but direct. Mind if I ask you something? Malak hesitated but shrugged. Sure. Vin's gaze was steady. Your manager, Callahan, what's he like? The shift was immediate. Malik's face darkened, the flicker of discomfort unmistakable. He's strict, Malek said cautiously. Vin tilted his head. That normal? Malek glanced around, checking for eavesdroppers. then lowered his voice. He's not just strict. He's a words caught in his throat. Then, barely a whisper, he makes Lily stay late, alone. Vin's muscles tensed. She's the only one. Malek nodded grimly. Yeah. And he talks to her like she owes him something. I've seen it the way she freezes up when he calls her to his office. It's not right. Vin's arms crossed, tension radiating from his stance. He'd seen this before, power games disguised as management. She ever say anything about it? Malak shook his head. No, but she doesn't have to. We all see it. Vin exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a toxic boss. This was a predator. Thanks for telling me, Vin said, clapping Malik's shoulder. You're a good guy. Malik offered a half smile, but still looked uneasy. Vin turned toward the restaurant, gaze hard. Lily was still inside, still under Callahan's thumb. And now, Vin had a plan. He pushed open the glass doors, the noise of clinking glasses and murmured conversations washing over him. The dinner rush had waned, fewer customers meant fewer witnesses. Callahan stood near the server station, posture smug, scanning the room like a king surveying his kingdom. Vin didn't stop at the bar. Didn't hesitate. He walked straight to Lily. She was taking an order, voice mechanical, face composed with her eyes. Her eyes looked hollow. When she saw him, a flash of fear crossed her features. Excuse me, Vin said, just loud enough for the nearby customer to hear. I need to speak with you. Lily blinked, confused. I'm with a customer, sir. The woman she was serving frowned. She's helping me right now. Vin's gaze didn't waver. It's important. Lily swallowed, glanced at the customer, then mumbled an apology before stepping away. Callahan noticed. Vin saw him straighten, eyes narrowing. Lily's eyes darted between Vin and Callahan. For just a fleeting moment, she looked like she might crumble, the weight of months, maybe years of pressure about to crush her. But then, with a shaky inhale, she forced a tight smile. I don't know what you mean, she whispered, her voice fragile, but rehearsed, as if it was a line she told herself too many times. Vin didn't buy it, not for a second. Lily, he said, voice gentle but firm. Callahan, the late shifts. The way he treats you. I know it's not okay. Her fingers curled into fists, knuckles whitening. That reaction wasn't stress, it was fear. And fear meant she believed she had no way out. I can't, she breathed, eyes glistening. You can, Vin countered, his tone unwavering. And you will. Because I promise you he's not untouchable. Before she could respond, a shadow loomed. Matt Callahan arrived, his polished shoes clicking against the floor, posture rigid and smile too sharp. Is there a problem here? His voice was polite, but Vin heard the warning beneath it, a threat wrapped in a veneer of professionalism. Vin didn't immediately turn to him. His gaze remained on Lily, watching how she shrank at Callahan's presence, shoulders tightening, fingers twisting in her apron hem. That reaction told Vin everything he needed to know. Slowly, Vin faced the manager, expression neutral, just having a conversation. Callahan's lips curved into a smile, but his eyes were hard. Well, Lily's got a job to do. No time for private discussions. Vin noticed how she flinched at the word private. That was it, the final piece of the puzzle. Actually, Vin said, stepping forward, voice steady, I think you and I should have a conversation. Right now. Callahan's smirk faltered. Excuse me. Without breaking eye contact, Vin reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and flipped it open. The room seemed to hold its breath. A glint of metal. A laminated card. Torque's Restaurant Group. Executive owner, Vin Diesel. Lily gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Servers froze mid-step, eyes wide. Callahan's face drained of color, bravado crumbling. My name is Vin Diesel, he said calmly, voice cutting through the restaurant's stunned silence. And you and I need to talk. A ripple moved through the dining area. Customers craned their necks, sensing something far bigger than a workplace dispute. Employees exchanged glances, hopeful, terrified, uncertain. Callahan blinked, mouth opening and closing like a man grappling for footing on shifting ground. Sir, I didn't realize. No, Vin cut in, voice like steel. You didn't. And that's the problem, isn't it? His gaze softened as he turned slightly toward Lily. You're safe now. Her lips parted, breath hitching. Relief and disbelief warred on her face. Slowly, hesitantly, she stood a little taller. For the first time that night, she didn't shrink away. Callahan's discomfort was palpable, sweat beating at his temple. Sir, I assure you, he stammered, this is just a misunderstanding. If you just give me a moment to your office, Vin said, tone brooking no argument. Now. The authority in his voice was undeniable. Callahan swallowed hard, confidence fracturing. Without another word, he turned stiffly, leading the way toward the back. Vin paused at Lily's side. Stay here, he told her gently. This won't take long. She nodded, tears brimming but not falling. Her hands still trembling slowly unclenched. Behind the closed office door, Callahan tried to rally. He let out a forced laugh. Look, sir, I didn't expect to see you tonight. But unusual for the owner to drop in unannounced. Vin planted both hands on the desk, leaning in. You know what else is unusual? His voice dropped, dangerous. A manager abusing his power, intimidating his employees. Callahan flinched. I don't know what you mean I know about the late shifts, Vin pressed. I know how you treat Lily, how you make her stay late. Alone. His gaze hardened. And I know you think you can get away with it. Callahan's face paled. Sir, I assure you I've always saved it. Vin's patience snapped. He pulled out his phone, tapped once. A recording played through the speaker. If I don't do what he says, I'm gone. Lily's voice raw and shaken filled the air. Then James' quiet rebuttal. You can't let him. He doesn't own you. Callahan's face drained of every last trace of color. Vin's gaze never wavered. You should have known better, he said coldly. You've been playing this game a long time, haven't you? Prying on employees who need their jobs, making them feel trapped. He leaned closer, words sharp. But let me be very clear, you just ran out of time. Callahan's hands trembled, his confidence crumbling. Please, I can explain. No, Vin snapped. You can't. He dialed a number, putting the call on speaker. Corporate HR, a voice answered on the other end. This is Vin Diesel, he stated. Effective immediately, Matt Callahan is terminated. Callahan sat frozen, devastation overtaking him. His power gone. Vin, he wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. When Vin stepped back into the dining area, the tension was thick enough to cut. Lily, James, Malik, and the rest of the staff waited, holding their collective breath. Vin's gaze found Lily's. He's gone, he said softly. You're safe. Her lips trembled. Relief flooded her features, and with it a slow, unsteady exhale that seemed to carry a year's worth of fear out of her lungs. Malak blinked. James rubbed at his face like he couldn't believe what just happened, but Vin knew. This wasn't the end. Not yet. Turning to the gathered employees, he raised his voice just enough. You've all been working under someone who didn't deserve that position. That changes now. Lily wiped at her eyes, her breathing steadying. What happens next? She asked. Vin offered a reassuring smile. You tell me. She looked at James, who nodded. Malek too. They were waiting for her. Lily drew in a shaky breath. I don't want anyone else to go through this. Not here. Not anywhere. They won't, Vin promised. He turned to the staff. This restaurant is under direct review. We're not just replacing Callahan, we're making sure no one like him gets that kind of power again. The weight of his words settled. The room was silent but filled with hope. Then James spoke. Sir, I don't mean to overstep, but it's not just Callahan. Vin's gaze sharpened. Go on. James hesitated, then stepped forward, voice stronger now. It's the pressure, the fear. You complain, you're out. No one speaks up because they can't afford to. Malak nodded. It's just how things are. Lily looked down. I thought maybe this was normal, she whispered. Vin's jaw clenched. This was why he came undercover, not for numbers or profit margins, but for them, for the people no report ever showed. That stops today, he said. Silence stretched, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was hopeful. I don't just want to fix this restaurant, Vin added. I want to fix the system. But I'll need your help. That means transparency, trust. If something's wrong, you speak up. Lily's gaze met his. And if we do, will anyone actually listen? Vin held her eyes. I will. For a long moment, she searched his face. Then slowly she nodded. And for the first time that night, she believed him. An hour later, Vin sat in his car, engine off. Through the window, he watched his employees locked up for the night. Lily, James, and Malik walked out together talking, laughing lightly, like the weight of an entire year had finally lifted. Vin exhaled, running a hand down his face. One restaurant, one manager, one location. But how many more were out there? How many Liliths? How many voices swallowed by fear? Leadership isn't about control. It's about responsibility. And tonight he'd remembered exactly why he did this. Sometimes all it takes is one person to break the cycle. There are moments in life when we must ask ourselves, What will I do when faced with injustice? Turn away or stand up? Vin Diesel's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes it takes just one person willing to confront the truth to change an entire system. Lily, a young woman carrying the weight of fear, pressure, and despair, once believed there was no way out. Her eyes said it all: the fear of losing her job, of retaliation, and the crushing feeling of being trapped in silence. But then, with just one sincere statement from Vin, "You're not alone," everything shifted. It wasn't just reassurance, it was a spark of hope in the darkness. Proof that courage can spread and rekindle spirits thought to be extinguished. We live in a world where too many people look the other way in the face of someone else's suffering. But remember, silence feeds injustice, while compassion has the power to save lives. A simple glance of understanding, a caring question, or a small act of kindness can be the lifeline someone desperately needs. If you're living through dark days like Lily, know this: you deserve respect, protection, and above all, you are not alone. Don't let fear suppress your voice. Be brave and step forward, because out there, people are ready to hold your hand and help you rise. And if you witness injustice, don't hesitate. Be the light in someone else's darkness. Sometimes, miracles don't come from the powerful, but from a heart that cares and hands willing to help. Life can be harsh, but hope is always kindled by humanity. And when one person dares to stand up, the world can change.